right, welcome Reanimated fans to a very long-awaited episode of our podcast, which has been on hiatus due to some technical difficulties. This is what happens when you have a monopoly in an area and you can only get Spectrum, which I guess is what it's now called. That said, we seem to be up and running again, which is great. After, count them, 6 visits from technicians here in Brooklyn anyway. But I am here, as always, with my intrepid and very patient co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart. How are you?
Hello, H.A. I'm Dandy.
And today we are finally talking about the movie that we have now been trying to review. I think this is... I kind of blame it on this film because I feel like we're cursed. Every time we try to review it, this is something weird happens and we don't get to discuss it. But we are talking about Viral, which came out... what year was it, Stuart? Do you remember?
I think it's in the last 12 months or so. Or maybe
2016. 2016. And the folks that brought us this show also were responsible for what was the wonderful, it's a movie that I definitely as you know, I dislike possession and that kind of stuff, which is kind of funny if you think about it. But what was the Paranormal Activity, I think, is what they did before this? Yes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's their franchise. At least one of the directors, Ariel Schulman, was responsible for that. And I actually thought that the first... Did you ever see it?
No, I've watched some of Paranormal Activity, yeah, but not entire. I haven't sat down and watched the entire movies. I don't really believe in their narrative structure or the way that they tell stories. That's the one told from a security cam, right?
Yeah, kind of. And I mean, at the time, and a lot, there was some of these things going on. I did think there was a lot of, in my opinion, with the budget that they had and what they did it with, I thought that it was fairly well executed given what they were working with. But I did find, because it was told through the security camera, that was really hard to keep focused, basically. At least for me as a viewer. Though, the whole possession and weird freaky spirits, as you know, that pushes my buttons. So that was definitely something I was like, oh my God. I think also because at the time I was in like living on, I was couch surfing at the time because it was just before I think I moved down to New York or something like that, and I was totally freaked out by it because I was like in various weird places that I was generally not familiar with. So, and the whole point of it is like this house is all freaky. So, but in any case, they did this film, Viral, and before we jump into this review of Viral, we have a couple of news items. Some of them are a little behind, but worth talking about. One of them is a book or a series of books that we've mentioned a few times, The Passage by Justin Cronin. And there had been rumors about a film or a series happening. We're a little bit behind on the news on this, though it appears that, perhaps not too far behind, because this was a series that was picked up by Fox, and we mentioned this, I think, a few months ago, but then heard nothing much about it, and I think part of it is that they are struggling with it. So this particular article that is making the rounds, or was making the rounds in August, was about the fact that they basically decided to reshoot some key things and also rewrite several things. So they brought in like another team of writers. This doesn't generally bode well for a series. I don't know what your take is on it, Stuart.
Well, I think at least they're trying to do CPR on it. Like, they like the idea enough that they're willing to keep investing in it, which I think is a good sign. This is a vampire story with similar elements as The Strain, and The Strain has now ended. I don't know if you caught any of their last season, H.A.
I am behind. I have not.
It had its ups and downs, right? We were pretty critical of The Strain after the first and second seasons. So I think they are going to want to differentiate themselves on this show from a disease based vector vampire show, which is kind of, I mean, it's been a long time since I read the passage too, but I feel like they had a lot in common. And so I hope that in the writer's room, they're not only making it something that Fox wants to option, I think is the word that you use, but as well as make something that's going to stand out as not the strain. But so what they're looking at now is a next spring, next fall, a fall 2018 contender once they finish their latest round of rewrites.
I think it could go either way. I mean, I think when you see them bringing in a team like this and completely reshooting things, it can go either way. Agree, it's a good sign that they're actually investing the time to do this, but it's concerning that all the work that they have put into it at this point has not come together in a way that they're happy with. I do think that I think that this is a great book, a great story. I do think that it went off the rails in some of the sequels, but I definitely think that the first book was a great kind of like storytelling, contagion, cautionary tale against military experimentation. But I obviously am going to give it a chance because I do enjoy that content, but always a little concerned when I see this much revamping, so to speak, done. But we'll see. I guess we'll have to bide our time on that one. Next up is an odd article that you dug up. I think it's a little strange just because it kind of it's retreading some territory that we've seen a ton of like writing about zombies being the popular genre, overtaking vampires and that kind of thing, and then adding in another layer to it, which again, not new news, but a little odd in where it appeared. So do you want to talk about this a little?
So yeah, this is by columnist Uni Hong and writing for CNN. And she wrote a good column. It's just that there's no news peg. There's no reason for it to be written when it was written is really my question. But so she's talking about race and zombie culture, not zombie culture, but zombie films and TV, starting with Night of the Living Dead. And, you know, the fact that they had an African-American lead character, but it was not a racially charged part, and how that guy was basically in charge of a bunch of white people, and it was completely natural the way it was written. And then she moves on to write about Glenn Rhee in The Walking Dead, and how he basically was not a overtly racial character, or his character was not treated with race as a canvas for most of the time anyway. Merle, of course, always
I was about to say like
changed that, but you know, Merle's interactions with Glenn were fairly seldom, just because of the way that the show was written. So she's kind of making points about also about whitewashing in Hollywood, and how lots of roles in the last few years have been cast for white people to play characters who were Asian in the source material, such as in Marvel and other stories like that one about Hawaii, where that woman's supposed to be Hawaiian, and she's blonde. I forget the actress's name, Emma Stone. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. It's just like race and zombies. It's better than I'm making it sound, but it was a little bit curious, the timing for her to write this.
I kind of felt like there was a paragraph missing or something, like, because it does feel like it should have been pegged to something and it wasn't. But you know, I guess they just needed some zombie filler and threw this in there. That's It was just kind of odd that it was just kind of placed in there with
ultimately,
no explanation.
The best part of the story, I think, is her distinction between vampires and zombies. The zombies are like the monster of the people, because nobody really wants to be a zombie, and yet people want to be vampires because they are privileged, basically.
Nice.
You know, and prey on they're like beautiful and prey on people and exploit people, whereas zombies are just, you know, shuffling meat sacks. And, So she liked, I think she was making the comment about how nobody really wants to end up being a zombie.
And last up, this also is a little of an older article, but still interesting. But there is a film coming out called Little Monsters, and it is with Lupita. I'm going to mispronounce this, so apologies. Nyong'o and Josh Gad, and it's yet another zombie comedy. And this comes from writer-director Abe Forsyth, and it's definitely. Is this totally an Australian production that you're aware of, Stuart?
No idea. Oh, it's in production in Sydney, but
yeah. Well, anyway, it looks like there's some tongue-in-cheek. You've got a teacher like that is. Her class has a field trip, and then this guy is basically, he's the uncle of one of the kids in her class, and he's going to be a chaperone on this thing, and sure enough, a zombie outbreak happens and hilarity ensues. I think it actually looks okay, so we'll see. This along with the holiday zombie film that's coming out, so I definitely watch this. I like both of these people, so it's definitely something to watch for. But I don't know that I've even seen a release date yet for this, but we shall we'll keep an eye on this one. And I think that was it for the news for the moment.
That's
and then circling back to my long intro about Viral, our cursed film that we were going to talk about. So, obviously, I watched this on Netflix. Did you watch this on Netflix as well?
Yes, I did.
All right. So, 2016, and the sort of basis of this outbreak is specifically, like, the botworm, I think, is kind of what they're going with, and this is, like, a worm in South America, and it, kind of, like, takes up residence, or the botfly, rather. And they kind of have, like, a lot of that going on, and that's sort of it's sort of like there's definitely a worm element, which, definitely is in line with a few different things we've seen. But I think that the unique thing about this film, or the thing that tries to be unique, is that it isn't just following the plot of the outbreak. It's kind of breaking things up with sort of a personalized plot line of these teenagers' lives, and sometimes does it successfully. But
I think I like that element of it. I think it's good.
Well, what I was going to say is that I think it does a good job in ways that other films don't, in writing about how teenagers would probably react to this kind of thing when you don't know anything else is going on. So I thought that was a nice element to this, and the writing I thought was very good. More so than you usually see in these kinds of films.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. But what were after watching it, like however many times you've watched it, what were your thoughts?
I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times now. Yeah. I liked it. I like this cast. I thought the characters were interesting and good actors. Some of my favorite actors, especially when it comes to Mr. Drakeford. Is an actor. I forget his name now because
Michael Kelly, the dad, right?
Yeah, he's really good. And the two young, Romeo and Juliet of this story are people I had never seen before, but I thought they were really good. The older sister has been in a bunch of stuff, and I've never seen her play. She's always usually playing like a goody two shoes, and it was interesting to see her play like a heretical kind of anarchist.
So the two main leads are the two sisters are Sophia Black Delia and Annalee Tipton.
Yeah.
And it's Annalee Tipton who you usually see, and she was also in Warm Bodies.
She was. I recall this now.
So but she's definitely, she did a good job, I think, at playing the rebellious teenager. In a very believable way. I also thought that the dynamic between the two sisters was really good and believable. I thought they had a very good dynamic and chemistry, which I thought was great.
Yeah. What this movie does in a really nice way, the script, the editing, I'm not sure exactly who to give the credit to, but it delivers and develops relationships based on just very light touches and very small snippets of dialogue. So like the relationship between these girls and their dad gets built up out. I mean, he's not even around anymore after the first act, basically. But we get a really good sense of their relationship with him. Also, because we don't know that the first time we meet him, Mr. Drakeford, and the girl's, his younger daughter's name is Emma, right?
Right.
The first time we see them together, we don't know that they're father and daughter. We just know that he's her teacher. And we don't figure out the relationship until a couple scenes later. But based on those few touches, like the way that they interact together, I think there's a deft touch here happening where it's developing these relationships in a way that is not very heavy-handed and yet gets a lot across. And so I enjoyed the way that the film did that.
Right, and I definitely kudos to the writers with that, because they did not need a ton of exposition and build-up. As you pointed out, there's very, the father disappears after the first quarter or third of the film, and that brings us into the main plot line. But the scenes with him are excellent, and they're also humorous and realistic. So there's these two teenage daughters are kind of dealing with certain things about being in a new school system, and their different reactions to it. There's also I really do enjoy, especially the dynamic between the sisters. Just about the younger Emma's crush on the neighbor, and the older sister's kind of bratty way of dealing with it, and super embarrassing way of dealing with it. And it's exactly what you would expect sisters to do to each other. And it's not the thing I liked about it was that it wasn't overtly negative. It's bratty, but it's also done out of love because she wants her live a little, basically. So there's not, it's a little mean, but it's not malicious, I guess. And so not super tropey in the way that you often see these kinds of relationships played out.
Also, older sister's name, Stacy? Right?
Yeah, Stacy.
Her boyfriend on this show, this movie, is Machine Gun Kelly, which is his stage name. He's a rapper, but he was in Roadies, which I think I might have talked a little bit about when that miniseries was on. And he's kind of a fun actor too, even though he plays a pretty predictable character on this, but he's got a good energy to him. I like watching when he's doing his thing on screen.
Yeah, no, he was good too. And the neighbor kid, who is Evan Klein, and he is played by Travis Tope. And again, he does a pretty good job at it. And again, it's these light touches that they reveal little things about the character that you don't need a ton, but you get enough to get where they're kind of placing him in this film. And you kind of assume one thing, and then it turns out that things are a little bit deeper than that, i.e. his relationship with his dad and who his dad is. So I thought all the character development was good, and I also thought that some of the things that happened in terms of the outbreak were really interesting. I also want to say the actress who played Emma's friend was very good too. The girl who plays Gracie, Lindsay Gray.
Yeah.
I thought that their relationship, their friendship, was entirely believable.
It was almost like they were too good of a friend, considering she was new at the school.
Yeah, that was the only kind of piece that was a little, but I still liked it, and I thought that was a nice touch. And even the storyline where the outbreak happens, I thought was nice. They do the same usual thing that you hear, the news reports, and you're slowly hearing sort of weird things drift in. I think that one of the more interesting pieces is that the father, because he is a science teacher, feels a little bit more informed than people normally are. So I kind of liked that he was the one conveying to his daughters how serious the situation actually was. And instead of coming from a place of ignorance, he's sitting up and paying attention to it when things start to go off the rails. Meaning when this starts appearing in their neighborhood, he's the one that takes it very seriously and is basically like, no, this is something that you need to you can't like laugh this off. We're going to go and stay home and all of that kind of thing, which you normally don't. You see them discovering things a little bit more piecemeal and basically having to, kind of sift through all the information and only getting to that point much later on in the film. But they had this awareness from the get-go, which I thought was nice.
Yeah, the only thing that he didn't figure out was that when he went to pick up his wife at the airport, he should have taken the girls with him.
Right. That was a little weird.
That's the only mistake.
I also don't like that was the one piece that I didn't find believable. I just don't think he would have left them at the house. So given the things that he's shown us up until this point, but without that, we wouldn't have all the teenagers running loose in the town, I guess.
Yeah. Home alone during a zombie,
right.
disaster. It makes for a good story.
It does make for a good story. I think some of the nice touches that they did was like the having the supplies dropped off by the army, and then how silly the kids are getting with it. Like I did love how CJ was all like into their like supplies and all excited about it, and and of course they're teenagers, they're not going to take this all seriously, and they're going to go to a party together because that's what kids do.
Well, Emma was doing her homework, and then she kind of got her arm twisted into going by her sister.
Still, she went. So, and they go and, they're not taking it seriously as they're kind of like on their own, and they're like, opportunity for a party. I did think it was interesting how they made the kid that was one of the carriers, and I don't think they even name him. He's just like kind of a weird looking kid, but he's distinctive enough that you automatically know who he is, and he's the one that gets infected by Gracie.
Yeah. I just call him Samaritan.
Yeah. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. I did think that the effects were better than I anticipated, and they were super gross. I liked how these hosts, basically of the virus, of the worms, or whatever you want to call them, I liked how they were kind of like, I don't want to say animalistic, but very instinctual. Like you don't know exactly why they're seeking out certain hosts, but they are, and I thought that was a nice touch to the whole plot line. And then, I think that one of the things that they did extremely well here was the interactions between Emma and Stacy once Stacy gets infected, because it really puts, I think it makes it the whole decision about what do you do with a family member who's this ill, who can infect other people.
Emma doesn't know Stacy is sick for multiple, like many minutes. They don't know she's sick till she collapses. They don't know that she's been infected until after the interaction with Bill, and a lot of stuff happens between now and then in the film. So it kind of makes you fall off the Stacy bandwagon, because one of the first things that happens the day after the party is the CDC comes to their house and does a blacklight test, which doesn't turn anything up, so it's a shitty test.
Yep.
And she's lying to them about being in touch with someone who's infected, even though she definitely, like, Stacy knows that she's got it because she keeps touching the back of her neck, and I'm pretty sure she felt that worm crawl into her. Was it her eye or something like that? And now he's saying, like, hey, get out of here, or get my gun. They lose their TV and internet, and then they make a run for the roadblock. They try and get out to their dad. Even though I'm pretty sure, actually, did he say don't try to get out?
Yeah, he said don't try to get out.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. At this point, is Stacy actually Stacy, or is she being controlled by the virus? Because that's kind of the implication that they make, that you're kind of taking over and you're doing things
right away.
Well, I mean, all of her behavior is super weird.
I
So,
mean,
and
she
it's,
kills Bill, who is also infected, which makes me think that she was not under
hmm,
control of the virus until after that scene.
I feel like she's fighting with it, possibly. But, that's kind of, and I also felt like she was killing him so that she wouldn't be discovered as having it somehow. But, yeah, I think her behavior is getting more, to me, it's like more and more crazy. And, her reason for wanting to get out is that she wants to spread the virus.
It's
So I
possible.
so I kind of feel like, and if that was a storyline, maybe they didn't show it as clearly as they could have. But that's kind of where I thought they were coming from, going to with that piece. But then when they actually discover that when she actually collapses and they have to board her up, that's like heartbreaking and weird. And she's trying to convince them to let her out and all sorts of like creepy, creepy stuff,
Hmm.
um, which I thought was,
But
good.
she's also like when Emma tries to like give her like when after several scenes and they're like we're gonna take this thing out of her because of all the
Mm-hmm.
botfly removal videos we had to watch.
Ew.
She is unwilling to approach Emma because she doesn't want to hurt her. She's like, no, it's gonna make me hurt you. So
Yep.
I like the fact that they did make that clear that she was aware of the compulsion and not willing
Give
to
into it
give
at this
into it.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunately poor CJ was not quite as lucky.
No. No. I like that he came by and he's like, a bunch of us are gonna get out of here.
Yep.
I thought that was cool. The weird thing about this "we're gonna get out of here" statement, and it seems like they're not allowed to get out, and then the military comes around,
To get
and
them out.
one more scene later, and they're like, "Yeah, we're evacuating everybody. Come on out." The only reason that it wouldn't work for the Drakefords is that well, Stacy's super infected, and now Emma and Evan have both been in contact with someone who's
Yep.
infected, so maybe they wouldn't make it out. But there's what's nice about this is there is other than dragging some infected people away, the military is not portrayed and like shooting at cars who try to run the roadblock. They're
Right.
not lining people up and murdering them, which is something
No.
we've seen in other stuff like the crazies.
No, they didn't. They didn't take that route, which I thought was also nice. Where it's like they are not. They're basically trying to figure out how to contain this I think, in a good way, in a reasonable way, to the extent that they can.
Hmm.
Though their blacklight test is clearly unsuccessful, so hey. But I don't. They're not portrayed as sort of the sort of power hungry organization that they are often portrayed as, like that runs amok the minute like martial law is declared.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice, refreshing change in this particular scenario. Although I don't think that they are particularly effective, obviously, just given sort of the back and forth that we've seen with the containment, because that doesn't make sense to me. And then there was the super gross extraction of
Yeah, which
Emma's.
I did fast forward to that the second time I had to watch it.
Yeah, I'll admit I couldn't watch the whole thing. It was gross. And so that was fun. But it's
It
it
totally
did.
seems like it worked. I don't like I was 100% convinced that it
I
had
wasn't
worked.
convinced. I was like, if it was that easy, they would have figured it out or whatever. But okay. And so she just totally goes full bore viral after a very short amount of time.
You know what? It does make sense though that it didn't work because when Samaritan kid is spitting on other children at that party, he's spitting worms at them. So
Yeah,
there's
there's a
not
lot
just
of worms.
there's not just one big worm, yeah. And Bill has it looks like he has a different worm coming out of each ear.
Right.
So
So they're all over the place. It's kind of hard to divest of it. But I did think, once it was clear that she was lost, they kind of get out of there. And but I did think that the whole heartbreaking thing about leaving your sister behind, leaving your family member behind, I think they portrayed this well.
wait, what do you mean leaving her behind?
Well, once she realizes that her sister is like done,
Oh, she ran away and they ran after her.
right? But then they realize where she's going because they have to see all the infected people, and then it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're done here.
Yeah. Well,
so-
also she shoots her, which was a pretty difficult thing for. I mean,
That's
after
what I
all the
mean.
buildup of their relationship, she has to shoot her, and then they have to get the hell out of there because there's a bomber coming. This is your third act. Like, okay, let's tie everything up and put a bow on it, but it is a little bit abrupt, and it's an interesting element to this zombie story that they basically could have wrote out this apocalypse if they hadn't gone to that stupid party. The odds of any of them coming in touch with an infected were fairly low. Bill does break into their house, but these are not zombies who are like smart, or I mean, I guess they're supposedly nesting and communicating with each other.
Once they get to a certain point, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not like going out and ravaging the neighborhood.
Right, and they're not seeking out hosts in a super efficient way.
Right.
And so that's an interesting piece. Like you could potentially just avoid these people. But I kind of liked that because I kind of like that they are, new to this zombie world and trying to take it over. And so they're flailing a little bit and they're not super smart. So that's cool. And as I said, they're instinctual. So they're not so that piece I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it would have been a very different and less interesting story if they had just avoided the party, maybe had to fight off Bill, but then got evacuated by the military and like found Dad or something,
Right. What did you think about the fact that Dad and Mom just kind of left? I thought that was weird.
Well, obviously there's an untold story there, or I guess not, because we find the note and he's like, "I've gone to Uncle Bill's" or something.
Yeah, I just don't know that parents would have left not knowing what happened to their kids, although maybe they were forced to leave, so that's possible.
Well, it kind of looked like that roadblock got overrun or burned out or something.
Yeah, so maybe that was it too. But it was just interesting that, they would just go to Uncle Bob's or wherever the heck it is.
They definitely leave this story with the possibility of a sequel. I don't know how well this did it even go to theaters? It's certainly been on Netflix, and well, you and I have watched it a few times, so maybe they'll think that it's really popular.
Well, and that's the thing about like the Paranormal Activity franchise. I think that at least like one or two of those were directly released to either Netflix or Amazon Prime or something like that. So I think if that was the case, they would totally be fine with it. And one of the things I do like about one of the things I like about the Paranormal Activity franchise, even though I obviously haven't followed all of the films, is that there is a willingness to work on a lower budget and a willingness to go direct to basically get it funded and take these projects on without the intention of necessarily releasing them in theaters.
Yeah.
And I think they're well done and the writing is well done and as I said, I think the Paranormal Activities kind of got like done to death, so to speak. But I do think that this has potential for a sequel. So I'd be okay with a sequel of this.
So it made $550,000 overseas in a limited release theatrical,
right?
Blah blah. But it definitely only got released direct to video in the U.S. So it really just depends on how they got paid for it.
Yeah.
And I'm with you though. If they can get Michael Kelly back,
oh yeah,
and Sophia Black-D'Elia and Travis Tope, add a couple more cast members, and I would totally watch the sequel to this.
Yeah, part of me wondered whether the whole plot line where the dad leaves and all of that is because they couldn't get Michael Kelly for more than the amount that they had him for, because he really is only in like the first third of the film, and it's almost like, okay, my scenes are done.
I gotta go do something Oscar worthy. The dude is great. I was rewatching some Generation Kill, and even though he has a fairly small part in that series, he's just got a great vibe. I
think he is a phenomenal actor, and he has a lot of depth to him. And he can. What I think is nice is that he can play this kind of character, but he also plays some super dark characters, and there's a lot of layers to him. So I like him a lot. So I absolutely would watch. I would watch pretty much anything that he's in. So in any case, I say thumbs up. I think that this was a fun little jaunt. And I would see more, definitely. So that's my review. That's
Good review.
in a nutshell.
So that's about everything we have to say about Viral. It might not be our best review because we've been trying to do it for literally 8 weeks, and you kind of lose some of your mojo over that intervening time. But I think we both liked it enough. Like we said, we liked it enough to see a sequel of it, which we certainly can't say for everything. However, join us again next time on Reanimated when we are going to discuss another film that's currently on Netflix. Hopefully it will be through the 1st of December because sometimes they change their catalog. But it's called What We Become, a 2015 film out of Denmark?
Correct.
And so that's going to be our bag. So hit us up again next time. In the meantime, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at ReanimatedPcast, by email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, and on our show notes at reanimatedpodcast.com. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.